I'm like, wait, that's so crazy that like you can just like enter into this really exclusive, really expensive museum for free just because you're a student. And that got me thinking as to what other things you can really benefit from.
Hello. Today I'm sitting down with David Mankuluti. You're a student at Macalester College in Minnesota, a graduate of the African Leadership Academy, and somebody who's already packed more leadership into 18, 19 years than most of us will manage in a lifetime. David, welcome so much to the show. Welcome to Global Student Voices.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. I mean, it's really an honor to be here with all of you guys and just, I guess, be a part of Global Student Voices to kind of give my perspective of how I got here. And I think a lot of tips that I used to get here, and anyone else who's listening, like, I hope to just be an inspiration, I guess. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, David. I appreciate that. You are already doing some really amazing things. People will be able to follow you on your socials and your Substack, and we'll have all that stuff in the description. But like all superheroes, one of the things I've learned, all superheroes have an origin story, and I would love to hear a little bit of your origin story, kind of the typical global student. Where are you from? Doesn't fill it in with a little bit of richness and color.
Yeah. Okay. So to give you guys my full backstory, or just a tidbit of it, I was born in Malawi. I was raised in a mixed household. So my mom is Malawian, my dad is from Botswana. And that kind of already shaped the kind of ideals that we had as a family. And even though my parents got divorced later on, I think we still kept those like internationalist ideals where everyone was a global citizen in the household. And it really meant like thinking about global citizenry as like commitment to the service that you do for our community. And I think very, very early on, like as early as like 6 years old, my mom was very, very adamant in teaching me like you need to care about people in your community. We used to go and volunteer at soup kitchens in Malawi. We used to go and volunteer to feed prisoners too, because she just really wanted to instill this like lesson of like service to community. And as of right now, I ascribe to communitarianism as like a core belief of mine, where I really believe that community and the group over the self is very important for like a holistic society. And that has like led me throughout a lot of the experiences that I've had. So after spending some time in Malawi, I went to South Africa for the African Leadership Academy, and it definitely was a journey. I think there was a lot of times where I wasn't sure that I would be able to make it in such like a prestigious environment, and it was very competitive. I remember I had like 3 rounds of interviews, and I had to write 5 essays, and it was a lot, but I think it was really worth it because then you get into like this mission driven aspect of it. Because I already had the community side and I already knew that I really enjoyed community. I really valued community. And so now coming here to a school like the African Leadership Academy that really valued like identity. So being African, what does it mean to be African? What does it mean to be a global citizen in Africa? What does it mean to be young in this day and age and care about the future? So it really equipped me with the tools to essentially learn more about the world in a critical lens. And then also, how do you take what your worldview is with the skills that you learn, whether in class, I did an internship with the African Union during that time, and all these different skills that you learn, how do you critically apply those? And so that kind of really shaped what I wanted to do in the future. And I knew that at the core of what I want to do is I want to help people. And that's been a very guiding presence in my life ever since I graduated. And now here at Macalester, I'm an economics and legal studies major, and I've really kind of put most of my work and efforts into trying my best to help people in the different ways that turns out, whether it's fundraising for refugees in Malawi or thinking about how do I help people who are wanting to get into higher education, who want to like earn scholarships, who want to earn honors or awards, or just get into a school that they know will provide them with the resources they need to be the best version of themselves. That's another way that I've really tried to help in the past like 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And I can see why I was drawn to your post because we have a lot of stuff in common. I was an economics political science major, also at a small liberal arts college. I also came from a top international school in Africa. We have this kind of parallel life experience that I think lead us, and I think my parents did the same thing in terms of instilling service, kind of servant leadership, and I see that coming from you as
Mhm.
well. Even in terms of like your the stuff I've seen in social media from you, it's very high value. I mean, I think there's a lot of garbage online, and I've participated in some of that myself. But I think what you're doing in terms of giving really practical, useful information to students in wherever part of their journey, it's very much in line with what I've been trying to do for my whole career and why we started Global Student Voices. So ALA, or African Leadership Academy, is an amazing story, and that's a whole show in and of itself. And we may need to co-host and get some folks from your school on and do a whole show just on that, because I would love to tell that story for folks who haven't heard it. But in the short version, from your own experience, anything to add beyond what you already have talked about, or maybe share any more of, people don't know Fred Swaniker's story of like the origin of ALA, but give us a little snapshot before we move on.
Of course. So for anyone who doesn't know ALA, especially if you're an African international student or work with African students, you should definitely get to know ALA because it really is a great resource. But essentially, the African Leadership Academy is a 2-year diploma program that was started by a group of visionaries, Fred Swaniker, Achaleke, and two other co-founders, that they built this kind of like empire, I would like to say, of like African education or African centered education. And Fred's like guiding ethos, and also Fred went to Macalester, so we went to the same school, we're close. But Fred's guiding ethos into this project, I guess, was really that so many people of his coworkers when he was at McKinsey Africa were sending their kids abroad. They were sending their kids to the UK, they're sending their kids to the US to get an education because they didn't trust the services that a lot of African international schools had, whether that was private boarding schools or just like schools in general. They didn't really believe that there was the services or the level of caliber that they wanted. And so Fred was like, actually, I think we can start something because I don't want to be traveling to the UK to go to my niece's graduation or my nephew's graduation when we have such great potential on the African continent. We have great educators, we have infrastructure, we have idealists and people who are visionaries for like what people should learn. What does it mean to be an African scholar? And so he said, you know what, I'm going to start it. And it came from a grant that he had at the Stanford Business School where he got his MBA. Him and two other people, this was their group project for their final dissertation. And then he said, I'm actually going to start it. And then within, I think, 2 years or 3 years, he had the whole business model planned out. He started with a summer program. So, like, everything that ALA is today started from a summer camp, and from there it just started growing because more people wanted to join. Then they started a full year, and then they started a full class, and then now ALA is a full running machine. And I think from my experience, ALA really gives you skills on how to be autodidactic, which is one of the core words. ALA has a lot of words, and if you ever go onto their website, you'll see like all of their like principles and everything that they value. But I think one of my favorite words that I learned from ALA was being autodidactic, which means really being a self-starter, really being independent in like what you do. So really understanding, okay, who am I? Like what do I want to do in this life besides just, I guess, make money or take care of my parents? You know, like besides the table stakes things, what do I want to do with my life? And so being autodidactic has really shaped what my ALA experience was and like what I learned from it, because everyone there is a self-starter. Everyone there takes initiative, and you kind of like learn and you're pushed by either the faculty and the staff because you have this community where you're able to be invested in, and there isn't much like risk in starting an on-campus business or learning how to engage with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, or you know, open up a bakery. There was all these different ventures that students on campus were doing and thinking about how does this make a return to society, whether it's you're going to be baking for homeless people, which one of my friends and I did over the course of our time at ALA, or just like so many different other things, whether it's teaching high schoolers how to apply to college, which is also what I did at ALA and beyond. And I think there's so much benefit from that autodidactic quality that I've been taking into everything that I do at Macalester, and I hope to keep it for the rest of my life. So that's just like a snapshot of what ALA is like.
It's fantastic. It's so inspiring. It's kind of one of those full circle moments. I actually reached out to the team during their master's program when they were having their initial conversations. They had put up a post because had been in both in higher education as well as the principal at an international school. Actually exchanged some emails with somebody on the team. I don't remember the name actually. And we talked a little bit about if the summer program expanded into something more. I was like, I want to be a part of that, the college prep part of it. It grew so fast and so strong, didn't need me, like, which is great. Like, that's the ideal. Like, I need to go where I'm needed, and I'm so glad that ALA didn't need me. But man, what an amazing story, and it's so cool that you're part of it. Tell us a little bit about your transition, because I think the transition from, I mean, you had a really unusually positive high school experience. That's not something that everybody has. But tell us about that transition then from that to Macalester, and what was that? What was the unknown? I guess what was the thing that caught you off in that experience? The real story, kind of. Pardon the interruption. Thanks for listening to this episode of Global Student Voices. We're glad you're here. We try really hard to provide good content for international school leaders, parents, and students. But to know what you want to hear, we need to hear from you. So please reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear next. Now, back to the show.
I think that's a great question. Also, I just want to caveat because I know if anyone from ALA will see this, they will know that ALA was not the most positive experience. It was a great experience, but it was also a rigorous experience. And it did test you in a lot of ways, but I think you definitely feel a lot stronger when you come out of it. But that's only by being tested by fire. But I think even with the positive experience that I had, there was still a lot of unknowns coming into the US. There's only so much that people can prepare you for. I think what was helpful with ALA was that we had a really great alumni network within the ALA community that like I remember I had a 2 hour Zoom chat with one of my friends who is now a senior at Oberlin who literally told me like all these like secret hacks of like you need to be friends with your career exploration department, you need to be friends with any of the different like pocket departments that like do funding, like become friends with your head of residence and all these like small niche hacks of like how to really succeed because really at the end of the day like everything is a very like personal and intimate experience. Like people will choose you for programs and grants and all these different things if they like you, and he was really trying to teach me that early on. He told me about like race dynamics and what it means to be black in America or what it means to be African in America and all the different like things that you can go through. And I think it was really helpful to have that alumni network who were so willing to host me. I remember my first day, I literally landed and one of the ALA alums at Macalester came and dropped me off and we had pizza together. And I think that was like really welcoming in like how I transitioned into this completely new place. And I think also Macalester, I think when you're looking for a college as an international student, you should be very cognizant of what type of community that is, what are the benefits and the disadvantages, and also be very frank with your disadvantages of the community and being very truthful and honest to like what you want and what that space can provide. And I think Macalester, I knew from the get, would be a really welcoming community. I know everyone talks about like the Minnesota nice, but it really is true. And to an extent, like even though some people use it as passive aggressiveness, I think there is not that much passive aggressiveness and more just genuine kindness in the Midwest. And so I knew that going in, and I knew that I'd be very welcomed in the community. And so that was also something that really eased that transition because everyone was willing to help you, like drive you to Target or show you the directions or even walk to like different places with you and just be like, this is where it is. People would show you, okay, these are the best restaurants nearby. These places have student discounts, but they're not going to tell you. So you need to be able to like, you need to be in the know. And I think all these like really niche things really cemented my sense of belonging in Macalester, and that transition was really smooth. And then ALA has a reunion every year or every 2 years. And so in my freshman year, I got to meet all of my, or like 60% of the people who I was with at ALA at the time. And we had a reunion in New York that ALA paid for. Very grateful for that. And
That's awesome.
that also really helped, smooth that transition because I didn't have to feel stuck in college, and I was able to explore, go to New York within like the first 2 months of being in the US. And it really is possible for you to have a good transition. It really just means you have to lean on your community, and you need to be okay with being vocal about like your needs.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's huge. And very affirming, David. This is very encouraging for me because I've been doing this a long time, and you start to worry that maybe I'm no longer relevant. But I've been saying the same thing now for 25, 30 years with students. The same still holds true. Like, for universities that are hosting students, your international students, your students who've come from overseas, your global students need to be the experts. I told when I did orientation with international students, I said, the goal after a week together is that people will search you out because they will know that if you don't know what to do, ask a global student because they're the ones that are prepared. And when you switch that role from a dependent to somebody with, I mean, that's a power, right? If somebody's asking you how to do something, that's powerful. And I think that's huge. And
Hmm.
your Oberlin friend did you a great service because that's absolutely true. I talk about how important the first 30 days are for your transition. And it's really all about relationship building. It's building in habits. And I tell people you have to act like an extrovert. You don't have to be an extrovert to thrive in the US, but you have to act like one for 30 days. After that, you can be introvert, you can hide out in your room, whatever, but you have to establish your network and establish those relationships because the opportunities that you don't know you need will come to you because of that work. It's so awesome to hear that that's still happening. I want to get into some more of what you're doing in keeping with this line. We're going to split this into two parts because I just can't, we can't do it all, and I don't want to let you go. In this first part, just ended up at the end, or in the links, there'll be links to more of what David's doing in terms of sharing his experience and his hacks. He's got some really simple ways you can save a ton of money. So if that's your motivation, follow him for that. We'll have a way for you to link with and follow him, not only in this podcast, but we'll probably try to negotiate a way to have his links even on our website so that you can get access to his stuff really quickly. So do that. So this will end part one, and now we're going to get into part two of a conversation with David. What is it that colleges don't tell you in their brochures and on their websites that maybe it's some of the same things that some of these alumni shared with you, but maybe it's some of the things you discovered on your own that just the brochures don't do it justice, or yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I don't even want to preface it too much, but just kind of tell us your story in that transition of some of realizations that you have that now you want to share with those coming behind you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode with David Mangaluti. There's so much good stuff that we're going to do it in two episodes. So join us again next week for the second half of this episode. And between now and then, let us know what else you want to hear about. We're always listening to see how we can make this show better and get you the information that you want and deserve. Have a great day.